In the very beginning of the parsha, Yehuda approaches Yosef, wants to demand of him to release Binyamin. Rashi quotes the words Vayigash Elav, he approached him, and then Rashi skips a few words and quotes the words Dov or Ba'oznei Adoni. This is all in the Dibur HaMaschil. And Rashi explains what it means is Yikonsu Dvorei Ba'oznecha, my words should enter your ears. So the Mefarshim explained that was bothering Rashi in the Pasuk. It sounds like Yehuda wants to speak right into the ears of Yosef, and that doesn't seem respectful to the Mishnah Lamelech, the second in command. So Rashi says it means my words should enter your ears. But the Rebbe says we had similar words to this already earlier on in the Torah a number of times. We have Avimelech after taking Sarah and having Hashem come to him and tell him don't start up with Avram and Sarah. Avimelech comes out to his people and he speaks Bi'ozneim in their ears. In the story of Ephraim and Avram with the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, we have Ephraim speaking to Avram Ba'oznei B'nei Ches in the ears of the B'nei Ches. Avram speaks to Ephraim Ba'oznei Amaretz in the ears of the people of the land. Now, surely in all of these places, they also weren't whispering things into their ears. On the contrary, they're speaking in front of many other people. And yet Rashi doesn't explain over there that Ba'oznei means that my words should enter your ears. So why is Rashi explaining that in our case in this way? The Rebbe also asks regarding the Dibur HaMaschil, if Rashi is only explaining the idea of Ba'oznei Adoni, Dover Ba'oznei Adoni, what it means to speak into the ears, why does Rashi quote the words Vayigash Elav? The Rebbe now moves to the next Rashi. The Pasuk says, V'al Yichar Apcha, Yehuda said to Yosef, don't get angry. So Rashi says, Mikana Tolamit, from here we learn that he spoke harshly to him. He's telling him, don't get angry. That means he's saying things that would get him angry because he spoke harshly to him. Mefarshim explained why Rashi needed to say this is because in the next few psukim, there's going to be a number of times where Rashi is going to take words that Yehuda says, which don't necessarily seem harsh, but he's going to explain that what Yehuda really meant was harsh things. So Rashi is telling us right here at the outset that it's from here that we learn that he spoke harshly. But the question still remains, why does Rashi say, Mikana Tolamid, you learn it from here? He could have just said simply, Malamid, that teaches us. What's this extra expression, Mikana Tolamid, which usually when Rashi writes that, he seems to be negating something else. We learn it from here, don't think we learn it from somewhere else. So what is Rashi negating in our case? So the explanation is, in all of the previous cases where we had this idea of someone speaking Ba'oznei, so whether it's Ephraim speaking to Avram, Ba'oznei B'nei Ches, in the ears of B'nei Ches, Avram speaking to Ephraim in the ears of the other people, Avimelech speaking to his servants. In all of those cases, there were many, many people listening to what's going on, and the simple meaning of the psukim are that all these other people hear what's happening. But in our case, Yehuda is just speaking to Yosef. So what does he mean, Ba'oznei Adoni, that Yosef should hear? That's what's bothering Rashi here. What does he mean, Ba'oznei Adoni? Says the Rebbe, that's going to answer our question why Rashi quotes in the Dibur HaMaschil Vayigash Elav that he approaches Yosef. Because that's going to make the question stronger. If Yehuda is not only speaking to Yosef, but he actually approaches him directly to speak to him, so obviously Yosef hears what he says. So that makes the question stronger. What does it mean, Ba'oznei Adoni? That's why Rashi says, Yikonsu Dvorei Ba'oznecha. My words should go into your ears. The Rebbe quotes the Friedrich Rebbe that would say not only heron to hear, but der heron. You should really sense it. It should really permeate. It should really impact you. In other words, he says, I want my words to really, really go in and have an effect. Based on this, says the Rebbe, now comes the next Rashi. V'al Yichar Apcha, don't get angry, says Rashi. From here we learn that he spoke harshly to him. Meaning to say, earlier on the Pasuk says, Yidaber no dover be'oznei Adoni, I want to speak in the ears of my master. Now we know that usually Yidaber, Vayidaber is a harsh expression. Rashi said this already. Rashi says it a number of times in Chumash. So we could have thought that it's from the word Yidaber that we know that he spoke harshly. And that's what Rashi is negating and saying, no. Mikana Tolamid, we learn it from the words, V'al Yichar Apcha, don't get angry. Why? Says the Rebbe like this. The reason why Dibur is usually a harsh expression, because Dibur is related to the words Yad Beir Amim, which means ruling the nations or leading the nations. We have an expression, Daber Echad L'Dor, there's one ruler for a nation. So Dibur is in a concept of rulership. And that's why we usually say that Dibur is a harsh expression, because, in other words, you're trying to control the other person. In truth, says the Rebbe, it's possible that you may even be speaking soft words, nice words, but if you're trying to change the other person and change his decision, so that could also be called dibur because it's a form of rulership. You're trying to gain control over him. So therefore, just from the word yidaber, where Yehuda is saying, wouldn't necessarily be a proof that he's speaking harshly. However, says the Rebbe, since Rashi had just, why wouldn't it be a proof that it's harshly? Why wouldn't our case it not be a proof that it's harshly? Says the Rebbe, this is specifically coming based on what we just explained in the previous Rashi, that Ba'aznei Adoni means that Yehuda is trying to impact Yosef. He said, Yikonsu Dvarei Ba'aznech, I want my words to enter your ears, which we explained. I want to change your mind. And therefore, even if he's speaking softly, it could technically still be called Dibur. And that's why Yidaber would not necessarily show that he's speaking harshly, because we just explained. He's speaking in a way that Yikonsu Dvarei Ba'aznech, he wants to really change Yosef. So it's after Rashi explained that Yikonsu Dvarei Ba'aznech, that's why Rashi says, so where do we know that he spoke harshly for him? Mikana Tolamed, it's not from the Yidaber, it's from Vayichar Apcha. That's how we learn that he actually spoke harshly to Yehuda. The Rebbe continues now with the Hayrah. Seemingly, says the Rebbe, if Yehuda is trying to come with a request to the Mishnah Lamelech to release Binyamin, why does he start right away with harsh words? Seemingly, you should start off first softly and nicely. If that doesn't work, you can move on to the harsher ways. The Rebbe says the other way definitely won't work. You can't start harshly, and the person you're speaking to will get angry, and then you'll try softly. So why is he starting right away this way? Says the Rebbe, the explanation is, when we're speaking about things that are not so important, maybe about monetary gain or other things. So yes, you're right, we have to go with logical calculations, etc. But when we're dealing with a thing as the Pasuk describes, nafshay kshura b'nafshay, the very essence of Binyamin and the very essence of Yaakov's life are connected over here. There's absolutely no room for cheshbonis, for calculations, to try to think what would work better. Rather, says the Rebbe, you start right away with the biggest shturim, with the biggest commotion. The Rebbe quotes the famous expression as tu tvei, when something hurts, you scream. And you know what? That actually has a much greater impact in these kind of ways. When you show that you're not taking all sorts of diplomacy into consideration, but rather, as the Rebbe says, you bang on the table with a big shturim, then the person sees it really matters to you, it really impacts the depths of your soul, and that really is what has an impact. Says the Rebbe, this is a hirah for all times and places. The Rebbe is dealing now with education. The Rebbe says when you want to save a Yid from Mitzrayim, from an Egyptian type of education, from a Goyish type of education, there's no time to make committees and investigations and take votes and to see what are the Egyptians going to think about it. And for that itself, you need another committee, says the Rebbe, people that know the Egyptian lifestyle and eat and drink along with them. Rather, you have to start right away with the biggest shturim to save from Egyptian chinuch, from a chinuch that's the opposite of Torah that can bring to assimilation. You need to start off with the biggest shturim, and it's dafka in that way, which brings that not only shouldn't we be slaves to Mitzrayim, but on the contrary, Pari gives them the very best of Mitzrayim, and in Mitzrayim itself they establish a yeshiva, where they know exactly what's the right way of Torah, what's the way Bnei Yaakov are supposed to conduct themselves, and that's the way they act. And the Rebbe concludes in a similar way, Kavayachol, when we speak about the hashpah coming from Hashem, when a Yid requests from Hashem and davens to Hashem, but with a great toika, with great strength, demanding what he needs, then the Eibishter fulfills all of his heart's desires in a good way, and everything that he needs. Miyodei hamleya apsucha hakdoisha v'orchava.